Okay, good day, everyone, and welcome to this UXPA webinar. It is organized by UXPA International. My name is EJ Makala, and I will be your host for today's session. As you know, the UXPA strives to bring high-quality content that's relevant to the UX community, including the one today. Toward the end of this session, which is expected to last a little less than an hour, this webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be posted to YouTube shortly thereafter. Also, I wanted to go through a few kind of housekeeping things just about upcoming events. So before we start today's program. First is that we have some upcoming webinars. Apologize, my screen has stopped working. But we have a webinar. We have two additional webinars coming up in July as well as August. I will post the details of those in the chat so you can get the specifics. Also, as I had mentioned earlier, we will take questions for today's session for our guests. And so if you do have any questions or any comments, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and we will get to them partway through the presentation. And so without further ado, let me introduce today's guest. Margo Stern is an author, and she is a content designer at Lyft, and she in fact has a new book coming out that I'm sure she will share with you. And the title for this session today is called "Good Job: Interviewing in Design." And so I will turn it over to her. Margo, take it away.
Hey, thanks, CJ. And this is Bean. She apparently will be joining us today. She's
wonderful.
I didn't know. She thinks I'm warm today. I'm here in San Francisco, where it's very cold. So she keep me warm. Let's see if I can get the screen share going. Always fun. You know how that goes. All right. Let's see. Okay, now it's in the screen, and I want to make the Zoom thing go away. Just give me 1 second. And a full screen guy. Cool. Everything look good? I will take the oops, sorry about that. Oh no, previews.
Everything does look good.
Great. Okay. So welcome. So my name is Margo Stern. I'm going to be talking to you today about top tips for hiring and getting hired in design. As EJ mentioned, I do have a book coming out. And if you search my name or go to my website, which I'll show you, you can sign up to get on the list for pre-order. And we'll talk about this, but this will give you a little bit of preview of what this is all about. Cat exits. Okay. So, just a little bit about me and my background. I am fluent in both being an IC, an individual contributor, and a manager. I have spent a lot of time in the industry. I've been in the industry about 12, 15 years at some of the big places. I'm currently at Lyft, but I've been at Google, Twitter, Facebook, and Peloton, and I've done IC and managing in both. And I've done a ton of interviewing, both as a candidate and as a hiring manager. I like to think of myself as a team builder, both in terms of hiring and building and constructing teams, but even like in the role that I'm in right now as a staff content designer, I'm helping the team leader build the team and build culture and build connection. I have had experience in all the big places for better or for worse. And experience, I mean, as a hiring manager and then as a candidate. So I've drawn on all this experience to talk about what I'm going to talk through today. So this is the book. It's a two-sided book. You read it one way, as an interviewer, you flip it over and read it the other way as a candidate. The real core thesis of the idea is that you need to have a good understanding of what's going on the other side of the experience to have to make it a good job and to make it a solid and efficient and effective interviewing experience. So like I said, this will be coming out in the next couple of weeks or so. We're just dealing with some printing issues. Forward is actually by Jared Spool and Tori Parmajay, who's a noted content designer. I'm really excited about what's coming out. So as I mentioned, the core thesis of the book and of this talk is that really the best interviews are two-way conversations that genuinely connect the strengths of a candidate with the needs of an organization. And this doesn't happen by accident. This doesn't happen by luck. This doesn't happen by vibes. This happens by the thing that we do in our daily basis, which is design, where we are creating a space where this can happen intentionally with constraints and with a determined outcome. And like good UX design, it takes foundational empathy to get there. You really need to understand what the other person's experience is in order to make this make it work. So today we're going to talk through 6 tips. Bonus, it's actually 12 tips because you're going to get 1 tip for the candidate side, 1 tip for the hiring manager side about hiring and getting hired in design. So we'll look at these 6 truths that are true for both sides of the table. And I will look forward to your questions about any and all of this at the end, because I can't see any of you. Okay. So the first tip is that your first stop in a job search, no matter if you're hiring or getting hired, is looking inward, not outward. Often the first thing people do when they are finding themselves in a searching position is to jump right to LinkedIn, really in either way, and to kind of go outward and see what's out there. I recommend against that. This is why what we want to do from the candidate side. On the candidate side, you want to think about looking back to look forward. That means before you set out on the next path in your next step in your career path, really understanding what's come before you and how that's going to inform what you want to do next. And this means kind of codifying and examining what are your values? What is it that's important to you? Why do you find yourself in a job searching space? Is it because you're misaligned somehow with your strengths at your current job? Is it because you're suddenly laid off? If you want to find something a little bit more certain, if you're just starting out in your career, what is it that's driving you forward? Values can be anything, and they can be different for different people, and there's no judgment to them. Some people may value a big title. Some people may value money. Some people may value working in something that aligns with their very strong ethics. And understanding what those values are, what are the things that you hold true, are going to inform what you do next. So I recommend understanding that, doing some like deep soul searching to understand what is it that you like. This also might be, what do you value in terms of your lifestyle? For some people, they want to work the startup type grind. They want to work beyond the hours of 9 to 5. For other people, they have family, they have other things that make them a complete designer, the whole person, or they want to leave time for that. I have 20 million hobbies. And so I like that I can work just within my working hours and leave time for all the other things that I do. On the hiring manager side, before you get out searching, you need to do a design exercise. And that design exercise I call designing the design job. And that means truly understanding what is the problem that you're solving for. Not all designers are alike. Not all content designers are alike. Not all UX researchers are alike. They have different specialties, different skills, different strengths, and really understanding, why is this role vacant? What is the relevant and comparable experience that someone would need in order to do this job? What are the real day-to-day skills that are going to inform it? So not just going out and searching on LinkedIn for senior designer, because you don't know what you want yet. It's too early for you to search. Bean. The next thing, when I talk too much, she gets excited. The next step is matching skills, not experience. So this means kind of opening up at once. You want to be really targeted in your job search. I don't like the idea of applying to anything that might be relevant. But I also like opening up your job search to things that might be a little more outside what you have clearly in mind of, like, I need to have this job at this title. So matching skills, not experience, means looking really closely at what are your core strengths as a designer, as a content designer, as a researcher that you want to apply moving forward. Like I said, there's many different kinds of content designs, many different kinds of designers, and everyone's a little bit different. Everyone does design a little bit differently. And knowing what those strengths are, knowing what it is that comes easily to you, where you're in the zone, that's the kind of thing that you want to know and have a clear idea of in order to match moving forward. So from candidate side, this means examining your strengths and then searching accordingly. From a content design point of view, I think about all the different skills that we have as content designers. Auditing, microcopy, empathy, research. Not everyone does everything really well. Same is true for design. Maybe not everyone's a prototyper, not everyone's a systems thinker. What are the things that you love doing as a designer, and have that inform what you're looking for in a role, and looking for that when you actually start firing up LinkedIn and looking for in the job description, what are the strengths that you're seeking to match? On a candidate side, a job description should look forward, not backward. So that means talking specifically about not what the candidate has done, but what the candidate will do. This means, if you're hiring for a finance space, does it necessarily mean they have to have finance or specific relevant specific industry experience? Or can it be enough that they have worked in, a cross-functional team that's worked remotely and building relationships across different time zones? Is that the more important relevant experience rather than they've had 5 years in this industry or X years in this industry? When I see those kinds of must-haves of like must have X years of experience in an industry, it's a little bit of a red flag to me because it seems like it's kind of a catch-all. It's a little bit of a wash. Instead of looking at experience, thinking about what this person will do, not what they have done. Never search alone. A lot of what I talk about in the book is how difficult a job search is, not just in terms of pragmatics, but in terms of emotions. Everything that we do, especially in a job searching space, is kind of an act of hope, right? Every time you hit apply, I talk about you're casting kind of a line of hope out there and waiting for something to get back. Same is true for a hiring side. Every time you're speaking to someone, you're really hoping that this one comes through. So there's a little bit of expectation. And with that, as you know, not all those expectations pan out. And, ghosting happens, breaks my heart. Don't know why. There's no reason for it. But job searching is really an emotional roller coaster. And knowing that and going in eyes wide open also means building up something of a support system. On the candidate side, that means finding a friend, joining a job search council or a search buddy. A couple of years ago, I was looking and I was looking for a new role. I was in a Slack group with ex people, I think it was from Facebook, Meta. And there was someone else in there, another content designer right at my level. And she and I were searching at the same places, searching for the same jobs, actually applying for the exact same jobs. And it wasn't weird. It was actually great because we were able to not necessarily compare notes, but validate one another's experience. Like, oh, did you talk to that guy? What was your thing like? Was it kind of weird? Did they ask you this kind of question? And it isn't about colluding. It's really about comfort, frankly. And she ended up getting the job, and I was thrilled for her because I actually thought she was a better fit for it. And it made our relationship stronger, and I still kept a really good relationship with the company that I was applying to. So having that backup, having that someone to talk with is fantastic. So it's nice to have someone who's like right aligned with you, but it doesn't have to be. But there are specific job search councils out there that you can join that are a little bit more formulaic if you're not as well connected. On the hiring manager side, you want to hire with the team for the team. One of the worst things you can do, I think, as a hiring manager is do it all alone. Say, I'm going to take it for the team. I'm going to figure out, and I'm going to plop someone brand new into the team. Idea. What you really want to do is understand what are the team's dynamics. You usually, as a hiring manager, you're not on the ground. You're not there shoulder to shoulder with the team. You don't understand the finite dynamics that are there. My cat is so crazy. Are you stuck? Hold on, her paw's stuck. I'm so sorry. There she is. Um, they don't understand the specific dynamics of the team. So hiring with the team means almost doing mini interviews with each team member to understand, what are the strengths, what are the skills, what is peculiar about this particular team, and what should I be looking for to put this candidate in the best position to be hired. This also means you're going to be involving this team every step of the way. You'll probably be doing as a hiring manager an initial hiring manager screen, but you're going to want to put together the job search protocol with them, the interview protocol with them. So it is a bit of a collaborative effort. Of course, you're leading it, but you really want them bought in. And you also want them bought in on the decision on whether to hire or not hire. I was once hiring for a content designer to come in and join my team. And the design manager, who was my partner, she and I ultimately disagreed on to hire or not hire someone. And even though I thought it was a really strong candidate who could have done very well, I ultimately ceded to her because it was her who was going to be working with that person. And I didn't want them to be kind of a few feet behind the starting line from their very first day, that they had to prove extra to this design manager. So it was not only unfair to them, it would have been unfair to them, but it would have been not so great for the relationship. So I was very intentionally hiring, again, with the team, for the team. It's not a solo effort. Interviews are conversations. They are not interrogations. There is one company that is very large that does kind of design their interviews in a bit more of an interrogatory style, kind of rapid fire. It is out there, but I think it's not necessarily effective. I don't know what skill it's testing for. I don't like it. But you, as a candidate and as a hiring manager, can better design your interviews to facilitate genuine conversation, driven by curiosity, to make sure that there's a real match between the candidate and the hiring manager. So from a candidate side, of course, you don't know what you're walking into, right? Every interview is a little bit different. But what you can do is prepare some really great stories and also know when to stop talking. So preparing great stories, if you haven't heard of it, I'll talk about it in the book. Go look it up. The STAR story format: situation, task, action, result. So this is often in UX interviews, you'll hear, tell me about a time when X, Y, and Z. Tell me about a time when you had to move fast while still being strategic. Tell me about a time when you had a disagreement and how you came to a resolution. There's many of these kinds of question format. What you want to do beforehand as a candidate is prepare all of your stories, is come up with a story bank that really talks about things in your career that speak specifically to your strengths as a designer, as a collaborator, as a communicator, that are anecdotes that show off your specific strengths, and format it in that situation. What was going on? Why were you in that space? Task. What were you tasked with? What was the thing you were trying to do? Action. What was the first action that you took, and the second action that you took, and the third action that you took to overcome obstacles? And then what was the result of all that? You prepare that story bank ahead of time, and you're going to be ready to answer any of those situational questions that come at you. When I say prepare, I mean literally writing out a document of these kinds of stories over and over and over again, and kind of tagging them. This one talks about collaboration. This one talks about design systems. This one talks about overcoming conflict. And some of those stories can answer many different questions. On the other side, when you knowing when to stop talking in an interview, there's two parts of an interview. There's a part where they talk, and there's the part where you talk. And when the part when they're talking, that's free time. Granted, you should be listening really, really intently and really thinking about and being curious and waiting for your time to speak, but you don't want to interrupt, because people will remember if you interrupt, because it makes them feel bad. And enjoy the free time. Enjoy the free times. There's definitely interviews that I've been in where someone has just been talking the whole time. And I thought, this is great. All I have to do is sit here and say, interesting, or, oh, at the right time when there's pauses, and it makes them feel like they're listened. And I've probably learned a lot of information about them, about the job, about the company. On the flip side, when you're a hiring manager, you want to really design the interview with equal give and take, so you don't end up one of those people who's just talking the whole time. So designing the interview with equal give and take means really setting out, say it's a 30-minute hiring manager interview, Okay, I'm gonna give 5 minutes of setup about context, about the job, about me, about why this is happening, about why this role is open. I'm gonna have a couple really specific questions that I want to get in and ask the candidate. So time for them to talk. And then maybe leaving time at the end for them to ask their questions. So giving yourself a little bit of time. So you're doing a little bit of talking, asking them specific questions, and then leaving time at the end. And designing each of those steps for equal give and take. So making sure that you're not just talking the whole time and you're not just letting them talk the entire time too. Okay, step 5. Check your bias, both good and bad. Bias serves us. Write this down. David Dylan Thomas wrote an incredible book called Design for Cognitive Bias. I reference it in my book. He's a good friend, and his book is incredible. And it really talks about what bias does in terms of creating shortcuts in our brain that inform our decisions. Because if we really had to examine every step, every thought, every choice we made, we get a lot less done, and we'd be a lot less efficient. So bias helps us. Bias is also real bad sometimes. We know about the bad biases, sexism, racism, ageism, all the isms. And those don't serve us, and obviously they can cut off opportunities for people who are well-deserved. So be very aware of your bias as you go through the interview process. So she's just unbelievable. So in terms of the candidate side, you don't want to totally cut off all your opportunities. Now, I've gone back and forth and said you want to be specific in your search. You don't want to just apply to everything. And you want to be targeted in kind of what you're applying to and what you're doing. On the other hand, I do think that curiosity really wins the day and really wins the interview process, and being open to talking to new people, being really curious to having conversations with people in different industry, things that you might not necessarily be interested in on paper, but go in and have the conversation and learn from it, and maybe consider broadening your search, or broadening what you might be interested in to something that you otherwise may have dismissed. It can lead to some really interesting conversations. On the hiring manager side, interrogate your gut, for better or for worse. If you're thinking, oh, this candidate sounds great, I really like them, why? What is it about it that is meaningful to you? Is it because you work at the same company? Is it because you're from the same part of the country? Is it because I don't know, something about their vibes were right? Why is that? And making sure that what you're looking for is that they really have the strengths and demonstrable skills that match with what you're looking for. On the other hand, if you're feeling iffy, if you're feeling uncertain, if you're feeling like you're not really sure, interrogate that too. Really consider, like, what is it? Is it one of those isms? Is it racism? Is it sexism? Is it ageism? That's giving you pause. And asking again, do they have the demonstrable skills that match with what I'm looking for in this particular job? And I'll talk a little bit next about what to do with those red flags as a hiring manager. As I said, there's a lot of pragmatics to hiring and getting hired, but it's also an emotional experience, and you need to really balance both using your heart and your head as you search for a job and as you hire people. Saying no thoughtfully is as important as saying yes. And this is true for both the candidate and the hiring manager side. On the candidate side, just because you have a job offered to you doesn't mean you have to take it. If throughout the process you yourself have been feeling some red flags, or there's something iffy about it, or you don't like the hiring manager, you just don't think it's going to work with them, don't let desperation to inform your decision. Or get blinded by something else. An example, I was interviewing for a job at a pretty big company, and they had 2 roles open. One that I was interested in, one that I kind of knew wasn't for me. I really liked everyone I talked to. I felt really good about the interviews. It went really well. I did my presentation, the whole thing. And at the end of it, I learned that the job that I was interested in, they had filled, and they were going to offer me the job I wasn't interested in. And the job I wasn't interested in, it was because it didn't align with my skill set. Instead of being really core content design that was consumer focused, which is what I'm good at, It was a little bit more design systems and almost technical writing, which I'm not good at. And they should have known better. And even though the offer was interesting and compelling and generous, and I liked everyone I talked to, I turned down the job because I knew that it wouldn't be a good fit. And if I had had less experience and thoughtfulness, I probably would have said, yes, I'll figure it out. I'll make a way for it to work. But I know that I wouldn't have been happy and it would have kind of ended and I'd be back at square one trying to look for a job again. Same thing on the hiring manager side. Um, Looking at those red flags, if you're thinking that you've come through and hiring someone and that you see something as coachable, um, really think about who's going to do that coaching, who has the time, who has the capacity and appetite and skill to do a particular coaching. I have seen people hired who don't have core writing skills as content designers and hired with the thought if someone is going to coach them. I kind of have a belief that core writing is hard to coach. You kind of can't do that. It's kind of like coaching someone to have a sense of humor. Uh, so it's thinking really carefully about how and why you might be feeling some red flags. But then also saying no thoughtfully, letting people down gently, giving them feedback, and never, ever, ever ghosting anyone, ever. True for candidate and hiring manager side. Don't do it. And then lastly, celebrate the win. Also true for both the candidate side and hiring manager side. Job searching is tough. I like it. I wrote a book about it. I am a very strange person who enjoys the process. But I also understand that that's not the case for most people. But when you get to the end of it and you get to give someone that new job feeling, when you get that new job feeling, celebrate it, enjoy it, and take some time for yourself before you dive in at day one. Go for a walk, go for a vacation, pet a needy cat, and enjoy your time. That's it. Thank you so much for your time and attention. I look forward to your questions. Please go to sterlingworded.com/good job to put your name in the little email box, and I will put you on the list for when the book goes on sale, which will be imminent. Thank you so much. And then I gotta get the tools out.
Wonderful, Margo. Thank you so much. This is great. So I want to thank both of you for such a delightful presentation. And so we did have some questions that have come in that I'll go through.
Okay.
But I just want to remind people, if you have any questions that you want to pose, maybe you want Margo to expand on something in particular, maybe you even have a different point of view that you want to get her a point of view on, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen and share it with us so we can have a discussion. Let's see. So first, this looks like it comes from a job seeker. They want to know, can you share guidance on the negotiation process, including how to advocate for fair compensation and benefits without jeopardizing the job offer? I have a feeling this is something that a lot of people
Yeah.
want to know.
Thank you
What's
for this question. It's one of my
right.
favorites. And it's definitely one, I know I'm going to say this a lot, but like, it's definitely one I cover in detail in the book. Oh, please negotiate. Negotiating is great. And I'm married to a lawyer, so that's like part of like informed by it. But I was doing this before we even met. They're not going to take the job away. They're not going to take the job away. They are expecting you to negotiate. And it's even if you're not negotiating for yourself, you're really negotiating also for everyone else in your industry. And I know that's a lot of pressure, but it is like when you have the bar raised for you, you're setting the level for everyone, and it becomes more competitive. I was talking to someone at my choir and she was like, I'm not going to negotiate. And I'm like, oh, it hurts my heart to hear that. She's like, I just don't want to. Everything is fine. I'm like, you're leaving money on the table. So, okay, you didn't ask if you should, you asked how. Simple. Kind of. There's two things to negotiate. There's obviously negotiating for salary, and there's other things that you can negotiate. You can negotiate potentially for things like start date, sign-on bonus, equity. Those are the kinds of things you can ask for. So first you want to understand like what is potentially on the table, and your recruiter should be able to help you with that. You know, you're talking with your recruiter and then eventually the hiring manager. Here's how you ask for it. You ask for what you want, and then you stop talking. You don't need to justify it. You don't need to explain it. You don't need to say anything. If your salary is, if they're offering you $80,000 and you say, you know, I have salary expectations of $100,000. You don't need to talk about why. That's just it. You just ask for it and you stop talking. And also, another thing you can do is you don't have to talk about it. You don't have to do it verbally. You can do it written. You can email. You can negotiate via email too, which is an easier way to do it if this makes you anxious. So the other thing is when you're given the offer, when you get an offer, thank them. Ask them when you need to get back to them by. And that's when you give yourself some time to negotiate and come back to them. You don't need to in the moment say like, you know, they give you 8 and you're like, how about 100? You know, you don't want to do it as a rapid fire thing. You want to be intentional and kind of design your response, whether it's verbal in a phone call, a Zoom, or written. But please negotiate. We're all mad.
Good. So there's one thing that you said that really, that struck me personally, and I wonder if it might depersonalize it a little bit, is to think about the broader, community of people in the same environment. Is that by asking for what is fair or what you need, you're rising sort of like you're kind of raising everything for everyone. You're kind of benefiting the community. So that was one thing that really struck me, and I wonder if that's even might make it easier to negotiate, because it's not just about you and them. It's about, oh, I'm doing this for the good of for the greater good.
Yeah, so it's not about you and your greed or what you want, right? But it's about what's fair and also that benefits the broader community.
Right. And given that for many of us who are in that user experience space, we are advocates for others. So you want to advocate for your colleagues or your
Exactly.
something else that seems to be related, and this might be a little more challenging, is there's those initial questions on the job applications that ask you how much you expect or need to be paid. And those seem a little trickier to answer right at the get-go. And I try to avoid answering that personally if I can, because I feel like I need more details, I need more context before I can answer that. Do you have any advice on how to answer questions like that in a way that's not going to put you in a corner when it comes time to actually negotiate the salary?
Yeah, I mean, like I agree with you. Like if you can put it off, I mean, here's the thing: you don't want to put it off for so long that you get to the end of a protracted interview process and they've come in way low and you're totally out of the ballpark. Um, I mean, I think you give a range at that point, right? You're like, I don't know, anywhere from 75 to 275 and give yourself a really broad range that's ridiculous range, but I think like a more reasonable range. So you can tell yourself and kind of say it out loud what you're not willing to earn less than and what you think is the upper bar of reasonable. Um, I usually like to say I'd like to get to, or I have a target of. And for me, I put that at a number and then I add in another 10 or 20%, something that I may actually be uncomfortable saying out loud. And sometimes I'll get there. And it's just my discomfort that kind of, again, raises the bar for me and for everyone else.
Great. Okay. Questions are flowing in. I want to talk more. I want to talk more about this, but I want to be respectful to the other people. Okay. So someone wants to know, uh, can you provide more tips on fostering a collaborative and transparent decision-making process when reviewing candidates with a hiring panel?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yes. I'm gonna say it. It's in the book, but I'll tell you now. So I do think like designing a process that is really inclusive and keeps people informed every step of the way. The process that I like that I've used as a hiring manager is I have a recruiter, they're bringing in people to me. I'm doing hiring manager screens, people that I'm confident in, not people that I'm on the fence about, people that I'm confident in. That's when I begin to move them forward into either panel or one-on-ones. It kind of depends on the order, just depends on the job and kind of people's availability, but I like to do both. And then I do like to, Greenhouse is a pretty good tool. And even if you're not using Greenhouse, if there's another way where people are putting their, like whatever their scorecards are for either the one-on-one or the panel interview, and not sharing it with each other first, but sending it to you directly as a hiring manager. So you can see, and in that is like basically yes, no, and why. And in that scorecard is also aligning like, okay, here are the strengths we're looking for. Are they, deficit to proficient in each one of those strengths and skills? So you're really creating a scorecard for each of those strengths and skills per candidate. So you're giving that to each of the individuals on your panel. Sorry, I'm a little bit back and forth. And so then they're coming at you with and giving their scorecard to you at the end of those interviews. Then I really think it's important to have an honest and open live conversation with the panel. And ideally, that panel is comprised of people who are going to be working with this person. It might be their manager, it might be their peers within like a UX pod, it might be other people who are within their disciplines, so other content designers, other designers. And the way that I like to run that debrief is to have people first acknowledge if they have any biases. Like, yeah, I went to the same college as that person, so, I've got some feelings there. Or, hey, I don't like that they worked for this company. I don't align with their values. Just any kind of biases that might inform their decision making so they can own it a little bit. I have everyone say their pros about the candidate. I have everyone say their cons about the candidate. And from there, you can get into a really interesting discussion, and the panel will generally move towards consensus about yes or no. And if there's still a lack of consensus, it's up to you leading that conversation to get them to yes or no, or to take it offline. If there really is no consensus, and like if there's everyone is a no or everyone is a yes and then one person is a no, maybe having a more targeted conversation with that one no to better understand and address their concerns, to see if like, okay, if there's something that needs to be coached, who's going to be on to coach that thing. But I do think just like you design an interview process, I think designing the debrief is crucial too. I have been on debriefs where, and the reason why I like to do it live and have the conversation, people want to hire, people are biased towards it. People want to give people a job. And I've been on ones where I was reviewing all of the scorecards, and everyone was a yes, but then I dug into the comments and they all had the same feedback and concerns. And so once we got into the debrief, I was like, hey, everyone had the same concern, and we all realized that that concern was sufficient enough to pass on the candidate. So even though on paper everyone was a yes, it actually turned out everyone shared the same concern and probably was a no, and that was the right move.
This reminds me a little bit of the UX research process. Okay, let's get to the more questions, if you don't mind.
No.
So this is also from the point of view of hiring manager. What are some common mistakes and pitfalls that hiring managers should avoid when extending job offers and negotiating with candidates? Are there any common mistakes or pitfalls that come to mind? Top 2 or 3.
A lot of that happens more on the recruiter side, right? Like that's,
Okay.
yeah, I think like usually recruiters are doing that final negotiation, and not necessarily the hiring manager. I think what I see is like getting to is okay, and extending an offer. I get antsy and like iffy about start dates. Like often you're in a position to hire because you've had this position open for a long time, and you want someone to start right away, right away, right away. And it's kind of becomes like your urgency is not someone else's emergency. So I think understanding that and giving yourself and giving the candidate some time to finish their job, take a little break, and then start when they're really mentally prepared to start a new job, which is a really big undertaking, right? You need to have your brain kind of like ready and open to take that on. So not pushing someone, and again, not making your urgency their emergency. I think, yeah, that's most of it. I'm sure there's other things that I'll come up with later.
Okay, well, feel free to pepper this
I'll have to have a think
more
on
of
that.
it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Uh, so this is from the point of view of a job seeker. How can you assess a company's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, also known as DEI, during the application and interview stages?
Good question. I mean, I think right now people are pretty upfront. I mean, I would just do your digging and do your research, and see kind of like what they've been. It's just that's true if it's a big company, right? Like you can look at the Fang Mang companies and kind of see where they've been landing on that. They're pretty loud about it, and I think it's or they're they're kind of you hear about people dismantling their DEI, which is just tragic and awful, and I hate everything about it. Um, I think I think you can be upfront and direct about it. Ask your recruiter, what is your company's commitment to DEI? Do you have any reports you can share about the workforce? What are your internal employee resource groups look like? What do you do to celebrate diversity? What do you do, not just to celebrate, but inform diversity, equity, and inclusion, not only in your hiring process, but in the workplace? Be direct. Again, they're not going to be mad about that. And I think if that is something as it should that drives your values, then I think it's something you need to be upfront about.
Yeah, let me even push this question a little further. So it's a hot topic, as you might know, in some places in the world. Is so there might also be a fear on the part of some job seekers about whitewashing. Is that, oh, they have DEI as one of the things that they might have on their website and everything, but you really want to know, like, are they willing to really walk the walk?
Yep.
Do they really believe it? And so I wonder if this question is more tied to, like, how do I really assess their commitment? Is there any sort of good formula? You say they won't get mad if you ask, but I can
I think
imagine.
I think it's in the way that you ask. Like, if you say like, tell me about your company's commitment to DEI. What are you most proud? I think if you ask them, I love this question, like, what are you most proud of the accomplishments you've
Yes.
made in the space of DEI? And listen to the answer. If they're like, oh, we brought out some pride cupcakes, not great, right? But if they have a better answer that actually is more, it talks about salary parity, if it talks about colorblind hiring practices, or like removing names from resumes, that kinds of thing, like see what their answers are and see if they align with what you think is sufficient. Yeah, but I think asking it in a way that isn't confrontational is really, really important. Positioning it as a positive
Right.
is a nice way to see it, and then see what they come back with.
Right. Yeah. And I assume it's also just kind of making a good judgment of their answer after the fact. It's like, how do you feel that they answered?
And ask everyone. Like I talk a bit about like the kinds of questions to ask in an interview. I like to, as a candidate, I like to ask the same questions to every person that I'm interviewing with at a company to see how their response is different. And it might be about culture. It might be, tell me about the thing you're most proud of shipping. What keeps you up at night is another one of my favorite questions.
Hmm.
Because it's just so nice and open-ended, because it might be like, oh, our planning process keeps me up at night. Or it like might be like, oh, my rambunctious kitten, right? Like either they're going to address it like on a personal or professional level. And I like to see what the answer is.
Do you have any resources for good interview questions that job seekers can ask? And for
Yes, it's in my
example, is
book,
there one of those, like
EJ.
specific here, like you offer some really good just there, and I was like, oh, those are really good. And
Yeah,
when working job seekers who are not really, experienced with doing interviews, where can they find questions like this?
it's in the book.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
All
but I
right.
do. I literally have like a ton of questions you can ask, and all about asking questions in interviews,
Great.
and including
Great.
like the one question never to ask.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Which you probably won't reveal here. Okay.
I can. I mean, I think the question that I hate, and I've like gotten into like, LinkedIn flame wars about this, is like there's a question that candidates will ask, which is, what is it about me? Is it like Tom, what is it like, what is it about me, the candidate, that makes me not a fit for this role? Or, what is something that makes me not is like, what is it that else I can do to make you hire me? And I think it's ultimately like it puts your the person who's interviewing you on the back foot,
Mhm.
puts them in a defensive position. It's also probably, because hiring is done by committee for good,
Mhm.
it's not
Mhm.
up to them, right? It couldn't be like, oh, I think you need to do this, and then you're a shoo-in. Like, it also would set an unreasonable expectation
Right.
for the candidate. So it just it just introduces kind of an icky dynamic that I don't like.
Okay, okay, good. All right, I'm gonna, if this is possible, I see we have a little less than 10 minutes left. I know you need to go into,
Actually, yeah, yeah, yeah.
so let's maybe, if possible, see if we can't do some rapid fire
Oh,
uh,
go.
Q&A. Okay,
Yes,
you
I'm
ready?
ready.
So let's see if your cat joins in. So for someone who are just getting into the UX field, how should we answer situational questions using the STAR method if we have limited professional design experience?
You have experience. You have experience in work, you have experience in life, you've had experience with your family. Um, there are absolutely things that I will talk about in my hobbies that are relevant to my professional life.
Okay.
Yeah, I am a swimmer, I'm a boxer, I am a musician, and there's parts of those that absolutely inform how I am professionally. I could give, a 20-minute talk about why jumping rope is just like doing content design. So I'm not going to do
Okay,
that now.
great.
I'm not
Let's
my
leave it
next
there.
slide. But you
It-
absolutely can.
I-
And like those same challenges, those same accomplishments that you are proud of that have probably informed and directed your interest in being a designer are the same experiences you can draw on to demonstrate what your experience will be or what your skills and strengths are for a particular role.
okay, all right. Can you speak a little bit more about preparing great stories, specifically when to stop talking?
Yeah. So again, like I think part of so much about interviewing is about preparation and preparing those stories and have them ready to talk, and have them ready to go. So in a story, there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And for me, like, and for a lot of people, like you just can tell them off the cuff and you kind of have a sense of rhythm and timing, and can also read feedback, from who you're talking to, like if they're engaged, if they're paying attention, if they're not along, or if you're just starting to like lose them or they're doing other things, right? So similarly, if you want to rehearse those stories for time, tell them to other people. Get that job search buddy.
Mm,
Bother your partner, right? Like this is where you want to rehearse telling those stories. And listen to their feedback. If you are brave, record yourself. And listen back to it and see like, okay, where can I cut that? That's a detail that's extraneous. Oh, I don't go into enough detail there. Um, so I think that's that, but yeah, it's hard for me to do that.
okay. Let's see. Do you have any good strategies for a new designer to respectfully get connected with other designers slash professionals that might be able to offer you job referrals without seeming needy or pushy?
Yeah. Informational interviews are great. And like network. I think there's like a ton of online networks and Slacks to communicate with. If you find like one person, maybe they can introduce you to other people. Virtual conferences, a nice way to getting into virtual conferences, volunteering at conferences. I recommend this if like for things like Button. I don't know if UXPA does this as well, which is like if you volunteer for a conference, you can get in and kind of be a participant, and doing that networking both in the Slacks that are associated with that conference and then in person, if you're comfortable with that as well. Um, don't make it about you. Make it about them. People love to talk about themselves. So, hit up, do informational interviews, say like, hey, I would just love to hear about how you got to where you are. I'm just learning and growing. That's where that curiosity comes in, and being open to talking to anyone and everyone.
Mm-hmm. Great. Um, Last one here. When job seekers have upcoming interviews, what recommendations or guidance can you share on how to research companies, team members, etc., without feeling overwhelmed?
Hmm. I mean, let's see. I think you want to go as deep as you can is going to make you feel confident and not overwhelmed and not like, and certainly not stalkerish. don't go deep onto like someone's Instagram. It's creepy. People have done that to me. Like, and like go individual. It's like, then you go private. But like, I think enough to align and answer the questions that you're looking to answer. Like, what is it about the company that you need to know? What is it about the person that you need to know, in order to make it feel like you are well prepared? You don't need to, you're not going to have to like, give a treatise on the history of the company. It is good to look at recent news articles to see like what is top of mind for the company right now. But yeah, I don't think you need to go super deep, just enough to feel informed and not missing anything obvious.
Right. So I've been sensing a little theme in some of these questions. And I'm just curious, do you think that the job interview process is emotional work?
Absolutely it is. Yeah, for sure. And I think, I mean, like I said, you set yourself up with expectation. You're talking about very personal things and your background. It's intense. Having these conversations can be like physically intense. Your cortisol is up, your adrenaline is up, you talk too fast. It is like a visceral experience to go through. So I think being able to, I'm a Californian and I'm going to say it, like find self-care and find like moments of kind of like taking care of yourself throughout the process is really, really important, no matter what that looks like. Feeling, at the end of those, like any job search, and at the end of it, you're going to feel pretty good or you're not going to feel so good. And of course, that's an emotional experience. So doing what you can to take care of yourself and getting ahead of it is good. It is not just about like being a robot and saying like, yes, I have the skills to do the thing, right? Like you also need to connect as a person. Um, and that because we're all just people out there trying to find a job.
Right, right. Margo Stern, thank you so much for joining us today, and congratulations on your new book.
Thank you.
Um, how can people keep in touch with you or follow follow all the work that you do?
Yep. LinkedIn is the place, for sure, for sure. Like follow me there. Connecting with me is totally okay. Also, definitely go to sternlyworded.com/ good job book, and sign up. And then I will be spinning up a newsletter once the book is out. I am not going to do it that often because I know everyone's got a newsletter these days. But at least you'll find out when the book is ready to be purchased, so you can hear all these tips and more.
Wonderful, wonderful. And one common question that we get from people in our webinars is, can I please get a copy of the presentation? And earlier, Margo told me that indeed we can do that. So she will send it to me after our session today, and I expect that we will include it as part of the YouTube posting, as well as you can find all of our webinars on the uxpa.org website. And so you can find it there. So with that, I'm just going to post a couple of things that I had a little trouble at the beginning of this session where I wasn't able to show some of the upcoming webinars. But real briefly, next month on Wednesday, July 16th, we have Prasant Dubey, a UX designer at IBM, talking about the power of playfulness to enhance UX in enterprise product. That sounds like fun. And then on the following month, on Wednesday, July 20th, Lloyd Hervé II is going to be talking about political design, shaping the design experience through individual influences, team structures, and regulatory frameworks. So please go to uxpa.org for more information about those, and please register because it would be great to have you. So again, thank you, Margo, for joining us today. Thank your cat for joining us today. And it's been a delight, and best wishes on your book release.
Thanks so much. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.